I was sitting back the other day thinking about comic books, which is not a rare occurrence. You know, I talk about comic books here every day. I think about comic books all the time, really. Kind of a boring thing to admit, but I imagine most of you can figure out that I've got comic books on the brain pretty much all the time at this point. And I was thinking about all the damage that Tom King has done throughout his career. I was like, what are the worst character assassinations he's even done? When you think about what he's done to characters like Wally West, Batman, Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, Martian Manhunter, and really start stacking them up and say, well, which one was the worst? And I put enough thought into it. I was like, I should probably talk about this with the viewers. Just have a rehash and airing of grievances against Tom King, who is actually technically a pretty decent writer. The problem is, I don't think he likes heroes. He definitely doesn't like DC Comics heroes. I think they stand for everything that he could never achieve, rather than elevate himself up to their level, or at least try. You know, you're never going to be as good as Superman. You're never going to be able to save as many people as Batman. But you can always try. We can get better every single day. He's decided he wanted to take the characters and he wants to bring them down to his level, because apparently superhero stories about Tom King are more interesting than actual superhero stories. I disagree, and I think most people are on to Tom King and his comic book writing style. I think they've had enough. Let's get into the 5 worst character assassinations in the history of Tom King's writing, and they're all pretty significant in my mind. Let's go with number 5. Selina Kyle Catwoman from the Batman Catwoman Maxi series. It basically ends his Batman run, which obviously was cut short by about 30 issues once he destroyed the sales on Batman. After finishing Batman Catwoman, I still can't actually tell you what the series is about or what Tom King was actually trying to accomplish here. You think coming into this that it's going to be finally, the wedding's going to happen. We're going to see Batman and Catwoman finally get together. It's going to be the end of this big romance that he built up for like a year and a half or something like that. And that is not the case. In fact, it appears to be, at least this is the way I took it, especially early on, that it's a love triangle between Batman, Catwoman, and Joker. But it's overt early on in the series that Catwoman is actually sleeping with Joker. And I think one of the big questions coming out of this is you're supposed to ask yourself, is he actually the father of Helena Wayne? Batman does not look good in this series. He comes off like a bumbling fool, which is actually a step up from his Batman run, which we are absolutely going to talk about before this list is over. Selina Kyle comes off as extremely manipulative, and quite frankly, I don't know what Bruce Wayne would ever see in this character. I don't know why he would marry her, and I don't know why he would want to have a daughter with her. She does end up murdering the Joker in the future, and it's got like 3 times or something like this. But probably the worst aspect, the big character assassination in my mind, is the relationship between Selina Kyle and her daughter, Helena Wayne. She appears, like in the comic book, to really hate her child, and it doesn't make any sense. She's overly antagonistic, she's really critical, and she's just kind of a bitch to her, and you never understand why. And the really weird thing is, if you read that Batman run, he was basically treating Selina Kyle like Bruce Wayne's mommy wife. She was way more powerful than Batman in Batman himself, but when we got to Batman Catwoman, all of a sudden he decided to like destroy that character. Made no sense whatsoever, but that's not nearly as bad what he actually did to Batman, which will come in at number 4. Obviously, I'm talking about his Batman run. A lot of people think this thing fell off the rails once we get to the wedding at issue number 50, but really early on, you can see that Tom King has no feel for Batman and makes him look like a complete dumbass, especially in the War of Jokes and Riddles, where Bruce Wayne on purpose funds a gang war happening in the streets of Gotham. He actually makes the decision on who he's going to back, Joker or Riddler. Made no sense for the character whatsoever, and Joker basically makes a joke out of him by the end of that comic book story. I'm surprised people didn't see what Tom King was doing to Batman then. Before we get to the wedding, I think it's issue number 47, it might be number 46, it's somewhere in there. These people are getting married in a church. Joker storms the church, takes the bride-to-be hostage. Batman shows up, they're talking, and he literally blows this woman's brains out in front of Batman, and Batman does nothing. There are no consequences for murdering a woman right in front of Batman. In fact, he actually goes down and prays with Joker, and then Joker shoots him in the face. I've never seen a dumber take on Batman himself. I couldn't believe DC Comics allowed Tom King to get away with that. And then it gets worse after the wedding doesn't happen, because Batman is so distraught that Selina Kyle has left him at the altar, even though we're supposed to believe that he's married to his vow, that he basically goes insane for like 15 issues straight. He has this nightmares thing and everything, because apparently Bruce Wayne is just as pathetic as Tom King and can't get over a girl breaking up with him. Just really bad character assassination on the part of Tom King. The only saving grace about that is you can kind of fuck up Batman pretty bad and people aren't going to notice because there's so many great old stories and there's so many good things to read in the moment, like in the now, that maybe they can just avoid that. With a lot of these other characters, especially these last three that we're going to talk about, the damage that Tom King ends up doing is a little bit more permanent. Coming in at number 3 is Mr. Terrific in Strange Adventures. Mr. Terrific has been called in by the Justice League basically to investigate the claims of Adam Strange in Strange Adventures, that he's a war hero. They think maybe he's lying, and we start going back into their past. And at one point, Adam Strange's wife is being interrogated by Mr. Terrific. They're actually in a bar. They're having a few drinks, talking about the loss of Adam Strange's daughter. And Mr. Terrific decides to confide in her and tell her that his wife had died, but she was also pregnant when that happened. And after the fact, he feels relieved that she died with their unborn child because he didn't feel like he could be responsible for another human being. I'm shocked that DC Comics allowed him to do this, but there is history with this story, and he removes just really a revelatory moment about Mr. Terrific in the history of DC Comics. When his wife dies in the comics initially, she wasn't pregnant. She wasn't pregnant in the story. After the fact, a few years later, he does find out that she was pregnant, and he goes to her grave, and he puts up like a little cross for his unborn child and grieves the child there while also grieving for the loss of his wife because he did want to be a father. He did feel the loss, even though at the time he didn't even know she was pregnant. That was a great moment about Mr. Terrific. Very sentimental, something that really makes an impact with people. And Tom King decided, because he's Tom fucking King, I guess, to wipe it all away and make Mr. Terrific a man that was happy, relieved that his wife and unborn child died. Absolutely disgusting stuff on the part of Tom King. It really gets no lower than that one, but he has done worse character assassination because he's done a lot more damaging things to a couple of characters. First up, I'll say at number 2 is Adam Strange in Strange Adventures, the second time that we're going to talk about this run. And it's all about, is Adam Strange actually a war hero when he was fighting the Picts? Did he do something shady, like when he was in the war on the other planet and all that stuff? Because the Picts have come to Earth. They start investigating what happens because somebody gets murdered very early on. And the big revelation is that, yes, Adam Strange is a war criminal. There's actually a page of him just like blasting prisoners, murdering them in a firing line. That was actually pretty reprehensible. But it also turns out that he's a turncoat. He actually ends up making a pact with the Picts, and he gives them his daughter. Everyone thinks his daughter's dead. She's not dead. He actually gave his daughter as collateral to the enemy so they would leave that planet. And then he was going to give them Earth. And that was the deal that he had made. He actually traded his daughter and his homeland so people would think that he was a hero. And it all ended up obviously being a lie because it's Tom King and everything has to be very, very depressing. And then, of course, the coup de grace is that his wife, upon learning what actually happened and what he did with her daughter, ends up shooting and murdering him herself because she's the only person that could end up doing the job at the end. I think everyone knew coming into Strange Adventures that something weird was going to happen because he did specifically say that this was like his comic book about the Trump administration or something like that. It really ended up being more about himself and how he sees heroes and the fact that his wife should shoot him, maybe. I don't know what he was even trying to say on that one. Obviously, number 1, I think you guys probably all knew this one was coming. It's Wally West. It's Heroes in Crisis. One of the worst comic book stories in the 100-year history of comic books themselves. Just absolute character assassination on the part of Tom King to Wally West. I don't know why Tom King hates Wally West, but it's clear that he has nothing for this character whatsoever. He does the strangest thing. Wally West is sent to Sanctuary, not because he saw too many dead bodies or anything like that. He's depressed because he can't find his wife and children who have been lost in the Speed Force. He arrives on Sanctuary and no one ever checks up on him. He's just really alone. He's really sad. He's really depressed. And he has to take all this burden onto himself. He sees the footage of the other people at Sanctuary talking about how sad they are. When he realizes that other people in Sanctuary are sad themselves, he's so overcome with emotion that the Speed Force literally turns him into a bomb. He explodes and kills everybody in Sanctuary, including his friend Roy Harper. Upon seeing this, Wally West, the most hopeful hero in the DC Comics universe, decides he can't face the fact of what he's done. He goes into the future, kidnaps himself, brings himself back, murders himself, so he's also one of the bodies that's discovered in Sanctuary, frames Booster Gold and Harley Quinn for the crimes, so now he's a mass murderer, who time traveled to kill himself, fabricated evidence, and framed 2 innocent people for the murders themselves. And then he does get discovered by Booster Gold and Harley Quinn because they figured it out, and he's finally like meeting up with himself, who's going to kill himself again. I don't even know what the fuck Tom King was trying to get on with that one. And then when he finally breaks down and cries and admits everything that he's done and everyone tells him it's going to be okay, Harley Quinn kicks him directly in the nuts. He's thrown in prison. And basically, Wally West has been toxic ever since Heroes in Crisis. I just gave you the cliff notes, covering only the most egregious elements of character assassination in that story. If you read the whole thing, it is so much worse than what I've just described. And the worst part is, he could never actually stick to DC continuity. And when he describes how he comes up with these stories, he develops the story without an actual hero in mind. So he's not writing the stories about the heroes. He breaks the heroes over the stories about himself, and then he destroys them. And in some cases, like a Wally West, the character is unsalvageable even for years at that point. They have tried so hard to make Wally West work after this. We got Fast Forward, which tried to do that. We got the last few issues of Josh Williamson's Flash run, which tried to do that, and none of it has worked. We have a fantastic Flash run right now starring Wally West with his entire family in it, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's so much fun, and nobody will read it because of what Tom King did to this character in Heroes in Crisis. Heroes in Crisis is without a doubt the most hated story in DC Comics history. If you're unaware of this, or if you haven't seen the video, or maybe you want a reminder of just how bad this story really was, definitely check out this video. I talked about it somewhat recently, explaining why Heroes in Crisis is absolute garbage. If you don't see it here, there's also a link in the video description.